The way to recognize that you are or are not winning with your routines is to have it in writing. And that's how you can test and see, am I following the thing that I said I was going to follow? Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Known Disciple Project podcast. I am your host, Mark Hummel. This podcast is all about bridging the gap between personal growth and spiritual development, all for seriously growth-minded disciples of Jesus. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most important skills that exists for growth-minded people who are really wanting to nail their routines, to level themselves up. And it is the skill of rebuilding momentum. Once you have realized that you've stopped following your routines, you have stalled in your progress, or you are unclear about what to do next. This skill is so important that when I am coaching people, leading mastermind groups, or just doing general high performance life and business teaching, it's the one skill that I think all of us should learn ahead of anything else. It is critical. Rebuilding momentum after a pause or after a stall or after a fumble is critical because it is 100% going to happen that we do pause, fall, stumble, or otherwise find ourselves not doing the things we said were important, not following our routines. And so some of you may recall the Rocky quote from the old movie Rocky, where he says, "It's not about how hard you can hit, it's about how many times you can get back up and keep going." I don't know if I'm quoting that exactly right, but that's what this episode is all about today. By the end of this episode, we're going to cover why most people fall off their routines and never get back on them. Statistically speaking, that's 100% most people. How to recognize that your routine is absent or no longer serving you. The difference between taking a break from routine, which is important to do, and from simply not following one. And how to get exactly clear about what you are doing and what needs to change using an exercise that I use that takes less than 10 minutes. If you take nothing else from this episode, take that exercise with you so that you can rebuild momentum anytime you need to. All right, let's dive into this today. So one thing you guys will learn about me if you listen to enough podcast episodes is that I am a routine fanatic. I live by routine. I teach it in high performance coaching. I have seen it save lives, literally. I have seen it improve lives. I have seen it bring people back from the brink of destruction. Routines are so important because structure is important and predictability in our life is important. That's all, even if you're not a growth-minded person. But if you're a growth-minded person, it's even more critical. And so I have a morning routine, a daily routine, an evening routine. And again, I teach it all to people as well, just like I'm teaching you right now. But I still fall off my routines very frequently. That's a weird transition, right? I live by routines, but I fall off very frequently. See, what I've learned is that in my life, there are two places that I will typically start to stall or fumble or not show up the way that I want to with my routines. One is after a trip. If I travel for work or if something interrupts my flow, I have found it in the past to be very difficult to get back on that flow. The other place is when I just get bored. I just get bored with my routine. And I've noticed a pattern that for me, at about every 6 weeks, I'm suddenly finding myself bored or otherwise uninterested in my routines. And so two things have had to be true for me. One, I've had to learn the skill of rebuilding momentum, getting back on my routine after a trip. And two, I've had to learn the skill of realizing that I'm bored with my routine. And instead of getting off of it or crashing and burning and stalling out, not doing anything, I take a break, shake it up, get right back to it. And so the longer you are off of a routine, the harder it is to get back on, which is why today's skill is about building momentum as soon as you realize that you need it. The whole idea here is that we never have to rebuild momentum, but the reality is that we do. As we said in the opening, it is 100% going to happen that no matter how no matter how serious we are about our routines, we are going to fall and we're going to have to get back up. The people I know that perform the best are always the people who know exactly how to get right back into the swing of things as soon as they know they need to. So, point number one today is our first critical thing that we want to talk about, and it is just awareness of why most of us fall off our routines to begin with and why we typically never get back on them. So, the first thing we need to understand is that most of us set unrealistic expectations. And I've talked about this on several podcasts, and everywhere I go, I talk about this is having realistic expectations of ourselves when we are crafting a routine. For example, if we want to be a fully devoted follower of Jesus Christ, like I do, we oftentimes will say things like, oh, I'm going to get up every single day at 5 a.m. I'm going to read an entire book of the Bible and I'm going to pray for an hour and a half. You guys see where I'm going with this? We go to the extreme end of a routine rather than just starting with one or two new things. Same thing is true in our health, in our relationships, in the gym, at work. Oftentimes we'll go too far into the extreme and have unrealistic expectations. And then that leads us to having this sort of all or nothing mentality. I struggle with this myself. An all or nothing mentality can cause us to have massive momentum when it's all and nothing when it's nothing. Go figure, right? This is where we bring in the principle that consistency with small things is always better than intensity for short periods of time. So that all or nothing mentality can get us into trouble. Autopilot or boredom, I talked about that just a moment ago. That's something that can cause us to fall off our routines. I think that everybody should be aware of how often they begin to get bored with their routines and need to shake them up. I'll talk about that in a bit. And then this is a really big one, stress and fatigue that causes cognitive overload. You're doing too much. Maybe work is stressing you out or family or whatever it is. But when we get to a point in our mind where we can no longer even hold new things, new education or things we're learning in our routines, or we can no longer think about improving ourselves because we're just exhausted, that is a very difficult thing to deal with. And there's a million other reasons, but for many, many reasons, people will fall off of routines. And your job is to be aware of your patterns. Start to bring awareness to why you will fall off of a routine and what typically will knock you off track. Just like, for example, I shared right after a trip, sometimes it would take me 2 or 3 weeks to get back into my exercise routines. That doesn't make sense. You could just start right when you get back. So what's up with that? I had to be aware of my patterns. All right. That brings us to point number 2, which is to recognize when your routine is absent or no longer serving you. This is different because a lot of times people will continue on with a routine and not really feel connected to it. They're bored and they sort of have one foot in, one foot out. And because of that, they're not actually getting the benefits of what is supposed to be coming out of your personal growth and your spiritual development routines. So here's an example. You stop getting up early and you don't even realize how it's affecting you until your patience runs out and you lash out at somebody because maybe you didn't properly plan your day and now you have no extra time or margin in your day and you're super impatient, or maybe you didn't have your quiet time that morning, so you didn't center yourself or point yourself toward the Lord and loving others. And you didn't even realize it. You've just been off routine. You've been just putting in the motions and maybe just checking the box or maybe not doing it at all. And you don't realize it until something drastic happens like this. Another example might be you start skipping workouts and suddenly you realize that it's been a long time and the pounds are starting to creep back up. And it's that jarring realization that, oh my gosh, I'm terrible. I've been off my routine for way too long. Now we go right back in. And what most of us do is go to the extreme side of right back in. Here's the thing. In order for us to recognize that we are off of our routines or that we are not fully following what we said was the important process that we're going to use to grow ourselves in our personal growth or our spiritual development, in my view as a coach, we cannot know unless it is in writing. This is a big principle in coaching. If it's not written down, it doesn't exist. Okay. This is true of your goals and the routines that you follow. And it doesn't have to be complicated, it just needs to be out of your head and on paper. And so I want to encourage you right away that the way to recognize that you are or are not winning with your routines is to have it in writing. And that's how you can test and see, am I following the thing that I said I was going to follow? And if it's no longer serving me, then I'll write a new one. Okay. Very important. We want to know if we are actually following our routine. And sometimes it's actually not as easy as it seems like it should be. And so it should be in writing. All right. So let's add another layer here. This is point number 3, which is the difference between taking a break from your routine and failing to follow one altogether. I am a huge fan of what we call a pattern interrupt. The pattern interrupt in coaching or in communication is kind of where it comes from, the skill of communication. But a pattern interrupt is where we purposefully, in a controlled way, cause some sort of change. Okay. So rather than crashing and burning and getting sick and tired of our own routines, instead we would say, you know what? I'm kind of getting bored with this. Or, you know what? I kind of just want to shake things up. So I'm going to change the pattern. Now, one of the reasons people fall off routine is, again, because it's no longer serving them, but they're still doing it. And so eventually they just kind of stop because they're not really getting what they want out of it. Instead of doing that, here's what I recommend. As soon as you realize that a pattern interrupt or a shift is needed, I want you to purposefully plan out a minimum of 3 days to use a different routine. What I don't want you to do is go completely off and do nothing. Okay, we're not going to just go off into chaos mode because, again, we don't want to have to completely restart and rebuild our momentum. What we want to do is keep momentum going by using this tool called a pattern interrupt. So we're not going to do nothing, but we could change the routine to be a much lighter version. Maybe instead of 5 things every morning, we're doing 1. Maybe instead of reading 10 pages every evening, we're just going to do something different that maybe helps us relax. You get to decide what it is, but the principle is to still be on some routine, but it's a much lighter load to give yourself a little bit of a break from the intensity of your normal routine, or just to feel different at all. Now, this is really important. Okay. Don't forget, we're still in somewhat of a sense of control here, meaning we're following something. And again, we want to make sure it's written out so that we're actually aware of what we're following and whether we're winning or losing. Okay. So when we do this on purpose, it has a tendency to refill our excitement for the routine that you actually want to follow. And over time, what we see is by using tools like the pattern interrupt and shifting things up for a few days at a time, is we stay on routine and we grow more over time rather than crashing and burning and falling off of routine over and over and over again and never getting back on, or taking forever to get back on. Over time, we actually end up causing more growth in our life, personal and spiritual. Let's go into our exercise. This is what I'm most excited about to share with you guys today. So this is point number 4, and it is a quick exercise. Really won't even take me long to explain it to you. It's how to get exactly clear about what you are doing anytime you need to, and what needs to change using this exercise. It takes less than 10 minutes. Okay. And so it's going to be question based. It's meant to give you clarity and awareness of where you are so that you can decide what to do next. And so if you find yourself in a place of chaos, and today we're applying it to routines, maybe you need to shake up your routine and understand whether you are following one, what it is, or what it should be. These questions can help you align very quickly. Here we go. Question number 1 is, where am I? Where am I is meant to describe your mental or physical state. So where am I? I'm feeling frustrated or tired or exhausted or full of joy and over the top. It's meant to give you awareness of where you are in your mind and in your body. Where am I? Who am I? It's question number 2. This is tied back to your identity, which we talk a lot about here on the Non-Disciple Project. This is tied to what you believe and the labels that you wear. Both of those are actually pretty important. So, for example, who am I? I am a disciple of Jesus Christ because I believe that he came to the world to save humanity, that he died, he rose again, and that we will meet him when he comes back. Because of that, I wear a bunch of labels. I believe in being a leader. I believe in being a coach. I believe in being, et cetera, et cetera. That's who I am. What am I doing? I'm building impact companies. What is your vision? What are you doing? You answer that question for yourself. That's question number 3. What am I doing? Question number 4, how am I doing it? Now, this is the question that will tell us if we are actually doing the things we should be doing or not. This is about goals, habits, behaviors. How am I doing it? So from the top, it is, where am I? Who am I? What am I doing? How am I doing it? So let's say I said, where am I? Well, I'm frustrated. Who am I? I'm a disciple of Jesus and I'm a business coach. What am I doing? I'm building impact companies. How am I doing it? Oh, well, I'm actually not really following my routine or showing up really well in the places that I said I would. And so maybe I need to adjust and go figure that out. Or perhaps the answer is more positive. How am I doing it? I'm nailing my morning routines and spending time first with Jesus, then planning out my day. Wherever you fall on that spectrum, as you go through these 4 questions, what you should have on the other side of it is awareness of how you're showing up based on your identity and your vision and the goals that you have. Then you get to decide what to do next. What to do next is usually going to be something like refining your routine, strengthening the things that are going well, or getting rid of the things that don't serve you. That's also really important. Okay. After you work on these 4 questions and you have some awareness, I want you to pray, bring Jesus into everything you do. So don't forget to say, Jesus, here's where I'm at. This is who I am. Here's what I'm here to do based on the vision that you've given me. And here's how I plan to do it. I want to submit all of that to you. I'm going to focus on effort. I know you've got the outcome. We've covered quite a bit today, but just to bring it back to the top, what we're talking about is the most important skill that you can develop as a seriously growth-minded disciple of Jesus, both in the personal growth lane and in spiritual development. And that is realizing when you are falling off of a routine and getting right back on, rebuilding momentum as soon as you need to. Those 4 questions, that short exercise, is a really great way to do it. If this episode impacted you at all, I'd be honored if you would subscribe and help us grow the podcast by sharing it with a friend, telling people about it. That is the only way that we are going to grow this podcast and help more disciples of Jesus nail their personal development and spiritual development. Until next time, be known.